Salute, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen. And as always, we got a lot to talk about. We weren't on last week, but we're back um, covering the Knicks, all the storylines related to the Knicks since the last time we were here, and a lot has happened. We'll talk about, where the Knicks are now. We'll talk about the Julius Randle injury and how that impacts the Knicks ceiling in the playoffs. We'll talk about Bojan and how well, in my opinion, he's been playing over the last 3 games. And does that bode well for us? We'll talk about Brunson, play of the month, Dick Barnett, elected to the Hall of Fame this year. The Knicks have 4 more games. Can we still hit 50 wins? Does it even matter at this point? A lot to talk about. Let me bring in the panel. Jeff, Dope Soul Sports Talk, Lady and the Chef, 2 Knicks chicks. How you guys doing?
Great.
I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, shout out to the chat. Wiz BKLA, Monarch Smart TV, and Daniel Berry Spots Highlight. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. All right, let's just briefly. Y'all know what we do every week. The MBK family of shows, pregame, postgame, the shoot around with Sim, the NBA wrap up with Ron of Still Nick fans, the controversy with Josh, aka Uncle Fulio, the Losers Lounge with Tony Crow of Knicks and Bruises. Haven't seen Tony in a while. Shout out to him. Live shows and videos by International Andy, Queen's Court, what we're doing right here with yours truly of Dope Soul Sports Talk, and special programming and events by Sim. This is where we are since we last met. You notice I usually have Randle in this picture. I had to switch him out. He's out for the rest of the season. Right now, we're 46 and 32, 4 games left to the season. Can you believe it? 2-2 over the last 4 games. Still fourth in the Eastern Conference. Part of it is how the Knicks are playing, and part of it is that the other teams in the Eastern Conference are up and down as well. Milwaukee has just lost 4 straight. Philly has won, I think, 3 straight. Miami is now in 8th place. There's a lot going on in the Eastern Conference. And seeds 2 through 8 are still up for grabs. Like, it hasn't been solidified. The only thing solidified right now is Boston is the number 1 seed throughout the course of the playoffs, East or West. All right. Offensive rating overall, 8th. Defensive rating, 8th. Net rating, 5th on the season. A miracle. I mean, when you're top 10 in offensive rating, defensive rating, and net rating, those are championship contending rankings. How the Knicks have been able to do it with the amount of injuries and bringing in new players and players in and out of the lineup, it's a miracle. Over the it says last 3 here, but it's the last 4, actually. The Knicks are 5th in offensive rating, 20th in defensive rating, and 14th in net rating. Before we get into just who and what has stood out for you, looking at these net ratings, looking at the record, looking at the standings, given what this Knicks team has had to contend with, what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the Knicks? And it means different things to each of us. Jeff, we'll start with you, and then Lady and the Chef.
To me, it means they took on the personality of their coach. They treat every single game like it's a playoff game. They don't take shorts. They go out there, win or lose. They're gonna bust their hump. They're gonna give you everything they have. They're gonna attack you and they're battle you for 48 minutes unless it's overtime, and then they're gonna do it for 5 more. And you may punch them in the mouth and hit them in the chest, and we may be wheezing and bleeding and half dead, but we still gonna get up like Rocky and take more punishment. And that's a tough team to have to play against. And it's really fun because it's an embodiment of the city. That's the New York Knicks I grew up with in the 90s. You know what I mean? We didn't take garbage off anybody. We were just, we were there, kind of like the bad boy Pistons were in Detroit. We're just tough, and you're gonna have to you're gonna know you've been to a fight if you come into a Knick game. And I think that's very much true of this group. And the other thing that strikes me is the teamwork. Like, I don't feel like people complain about their roles, even when they change, even when they're fluid, even when, one day you're sitting on the bench playing 5 minutes a game and the next you're in the lineup for 43 minutes, and so there's a lot of variance. They all trust each other. They trust what Coach Thibodeau is telling them. They really seem to genuinely like each other, and there's just a certain family quality about the team, and maybe it's just because the Villanova boys are there or whatever, but I really feel like even when the news of Randle hit, just the reaction from the team, just like they were as crushed as we were about it. You know what I mean? And that says a lot to me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just tried to throw in there that they played like it.
They did. And that's all I was going to say, though. Let's get it to someone smarter than I am. What do you think, lady?
No, you know what? I think the standings, to piggyback off of what Jeff was saying, I think it does tell a true testament of what this team is made of.
Yeah.
I think once this Knicks team has found their identity, that togetherness, that the team effort from everyone came together. There wasn't an individual play. Guys was actually playing together, which made this team a lot more successful. And I've been saying that since the start of the season.
Yes.
We were waiting for the Knicks to come together and be able to play together. And being coached under a coach like Tibbs, who's big on defense, it shows. At one point, the Knicks were rated 5th in defensive rating. And this team has shown, even in games that the Knicks have lost, this team has shown resilience in coming back from down from 20, 25 points. And the Knicks are not a team that you could sleep on because they can creep back into games and get within 6, get within 5, or take the lead. I think that sometimes I do get confused, though, when I look at those standings for this team, just because, on some nights, you look at the ratings of where the Knicks are, but defensively, it doesn't show some nights. And I get that some nights that teams are going to have an off night. But I think if you look at the last 4 games, and then prior to that, we had another stretch where we lost 4 or 5 games. To be honest, the Knicks should be in second place by now, with the standings and where they are as a team. And I'm not going to harp on them because they have remained in 4th. But part of that reason is because the East has been very weak this year, and other teams just have lost games, haven't been able to keep up with games and their winnings. So the Knicks have gotten lucky that they've been hanging on by a thread by that 4th seeding, jumping between 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But I sometimes I get a little confused because on some nights, like when we lost to Chicago, I was very annoyed and upset with the Knicks for losing to Chicago out of all teams. You can't lose to a team like Chicago. So when
Even
you
though
have
we were without Josh Hart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I feel like Josh Hart is a integral part to this team, yes. And I thought that was a complete BS call. I thought he was off balance. It wasn't intentional. He wasn't doing a Draymond Green and actually trying to karate kick him across the head. But I think that when you have other guys on this team, I feel like this is a professional league. You're getting paid however millions of dollars you're getting paid. You have to step up and perform. When I watched the South Carolina-Iowa game, you thought other players that weren't named Caitlin Clark and Cardoza wasn't going to step up. Like, everybody has to do their job. You have to come in there and do your job and to the best of your ability. And it doesn't always mean having 12 plus points or however many points, but I get a little confused sometimes because in the standings on paper, it looks great for the Knicks. You're like, wow, they're rated this, that for this standing and this. But then some nights, again, like a game like Chicago when we lost to the Spurs, you dropped the one to OKC. It's just like the Knicks should have well over 50 wins by now. If you count a lot of the losses that we've had, and like I was telling you both before we started, where would this team be without Jalen Brunson? If we didn't have a lot of the games that we have won, we wouldn't have won. So I think for me, still a disconnect here with this team. While I'm with them and I love what I see, like on a game like last night against Milwaukee. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's other times where I scratch my head and I watch the game and I go, well, what's happening here? And I know we'll get into that when you're going to ask us about what we have saw and not saw. But it's just a little confusing when I see the standings where this team is, while on some nights it matches what's on paper, and
Mm-hmm.
then a lot more nights it does not match for me.
Right. Yeah. 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 I agree. Um, yeah, I think what's sticking out, and I agree with you, Lady and the Chef, that there's definitely been games that even with our injuries, um, we had an opportunity to win, for sure. But when I look at the season overall, and if we started this season and you told me Mitch was going to miss 50 games, Randle was going to miss, I don't know, 30, whatever it's been, um, OG, we would trade for him in December, well before the trading deadline. And he would still only play, I don't know, 18 games for us. And we would be one game. I'm not sure what it is. Um, I know as of last night, it was one game out of second place. I would have to say you were delusional.
Right.
That you was a Nick Homer. Like there's just no way that could be the case. And here we are. To your point though, some of it has been, that the Eastern Conference, they've had the other teams in the Eastern Conference has had their own issues, whether it's injuries, whether it's just losing streaks because they're young in terms of Indiana and Orlando, and maybe not knowing how to be super consistent at this time. Injuries with Miami. Cleveland has had a lot of injuries as well. Everybody is going through it other than Boston for different reasons. Um, but that we would be one game out of second place. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. It might be 1.5. It might be 2. I didn't check the standings last night. I actually have it
That's one.
right here. Yeah. It's 1. It's still 1. We're in 4th, tied with Orlando, but Orlando has the tiebreaker. I'm just super impressed. We were talking before the show though. When I seen him play against Chicago, and I get it, I won't pick Chicago because we didn't have Hart, and I think Hart is important. San Antonio, you see it, you like, I don't know if we getting out the first round.
Mhm.
Then you see them play against Milwaukee, and you're like, you know what? We might be able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals as everything breaks just right. It's it- each how I feel about this team changes based on how they play in any given game. And we'll talk more about what we think the ceiling of the team um, is right now. But let's go on to the usual question. Since we've last been here, well, I shouldn't do that because that's probably like 8 games. Since last week, the Knicks are 2-2. I had it here and I lost it. Who we played. I don't know if San Antonio was in there. I know Milwaukee, Chicago, Sacramento, and I'm not before Sacramento. I'm not sure if it was San Antonio. I had it here and I lost it, but
It was
two and-
OKC, wasn't it?
might have been OKC.
Yeah, it was San Antonio, OKC. Then we played Miami, then Sacramento,
Miami.
and then
It was
Chicago.
Miami. Those were the
Hmm.
last 4, and so we were 2-2. We lost to Miami. We beat Sacramento, lost to Chicago, and last night beat Milwaukee. Over those 4 games, starting with Milwaukee, who and what has stood out for you? Lady in the Shelf, we'll start there. Eddie Kofi, I appreciate you. Queen, please raise my hopes. Listen, like I told you, if you would have talked just at the beginning when we did Dope Soul Sports Talk, just at the beginning, I'm like, our chances have diminished significantly. That's where I was at the beginning of the show. And at the end of the show, we started talking about what would need to happen, for the Knicks to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. A few things will fall into place, and I felt better. So, Eddie Kofi, I don't know if I can help you because depending on the day that you catch me, you might get a totally different story. Lady in the Chef, who or what has stood out for you?
Well, for one, what stood out for me are the slow starts. The Knicks have been starting off their games low energy, just not locked in and not focused 100%. Um, I'm seeing one guy trying to carry the team on his back. And then the supporting cast guys, your Josh Hart, your Dante DiVincenzo, who loves relying just on a 3-pointer. And that's a little concerning. And shout out to Tony Crow and Sim. I was watching Tony Crow's show from this afternoon today. And that was one of the questions he asked Sim was, do you feel like Dante DiVincenzo is going to heavily rely offensively just on that 3-pointer going into the postseason? And is that going to hurt the Knicks? That wasn't the exact question, but it was something very close to that. And, I thought that was a really good question because, I know OG just came back, but his impact still is very strong on his team, even with the other little things that he does. But like with OG, I would like to see OG be a little bit more aggressive towards scoring as well. Um, and then, Josh Hart, I look at his stats and I'm like, wow, he got like last night, he had 9 rebounds, 9 assists, and I think he had maybe 7 points. I said, oh, if he gets one more bucket, he's at a triple double. I think the double and the triple doubles are great. I
Mhm.
just think that it's taking for, again, the supporting cast to like midway of the third quarter to start to kick it into gear. And this is what I was trying to get at earlier with Jeff. I think that's a little too late
Mm.
because I think the Knicks have to learn to really put their foot on teams' necks and don't let go. And what's happening is that those last 4 games, even including the Sacramento and the Milwaukee game that we won, sure we won, but I don't know why the Knicks have to do this freedom fight to try to get their way to a win because they're trying to, crawl back into a game and get a W against teams. And they're making it harder for themselves, and I think that there's a lot of these games where I'm wondering why are we having these slow starts against teams, and in the third you have the supporting cast guys like Devo, I Precious. I don't know where he's been at lately,
Mhm.
and I honestly I feel like the only other guy who I've seen that's really been consistent and he seems like he's gotten his energy is really kicked back into gear is Isaiah Hartenstein. But the slow starts has really been a killer for the Knicks. And, I think also just, I think rotational wise, I heard Sim bring up he would like to see Tibbs play Bogdanovich in Randle's spot because we know what he can do offensively. And I agree with that. I think Tibbs is also kind of hurting the team by not playing Bogdanovich that many minutes. I think his minutes needs to be up there more because he can give you 17, 20, 23 points. But a lot of times I look, he's sitting on the bench. Not sure what that's about. We know it's a trust thing with Tibbs, but
But do you
I
think it could be his defense too?
well, his defense is not that great. I agree. It's not, but I mean, something's going to have to give. I mean, there's no scoring out there. Right now, the only offensive threat you have is Jalen Brunson. And if he is off, why is the offense becoming so stagnant with the Knicks? There's really no one else doing anything. And then finally, it's like an aha moment goes off, and then Josh Hart will get going, or Dante DiVincenzo will get going. McBride may get going, but it's too late. We're starting in the midway of the third quarter to start to get the juices flowing, and now we want to come alive and the energy's coming. And I just think that we need guys who's going to come out from the start of the it don't even have to be at the start, the first quarter. We need you to start to make an impact and do something out there. And right now what I'm seeing is just majority Jake falling on Jalen Brunson, and he doesn't have any help, which is very frustrating to watch because I'm like, well, damn, if he wasn't out there, what else would we be doing?
Not much. But do you think some of it though has to do with the fact that we're asking a lot of these players who were really brought in to be role players to play off of Brunson and Randle, like they were going to create offense for those players. who would then just stand behind it. Because look what we brought in. We brought in a lot of 3-point shooters. We didn't bring in a lot of players that can create their own shot. And I think that was by design because Randle was going to have the ball in his hand a lot. OG was going to have the ball in it. Randle and Brunson. They got rid of RJ. Well, they traded RJ and quickly. Those were two other players who can create their own shot, would have the ball in their hands. They moved them out and brought in shooters to play around those two guys. Do you think part of it is the fact that Randle being hurt basically changes how those guys play? And you're like asking them now to do something that's really not, it's not really who they are. You got Bojan trying to create shots. He can do it, but that's not really, that's not really who he is. I mean, Hart, he'll score and whatever, but he's not a shot generator as well. And Isaiah Hartenstein is only effective because of what he gets off of Brunson, right? He's not somebody where you're going to throw it into the post and ask him to get a basket either. So I guess I'm asking both of you, do you think part of it is guys being out of their roles and asked to do more than they were really brought in to do?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that, yeah, we are asking role players to have to step up and play a different role or give more than what they were asked to do. But I think a part of it is this front office, to me, I think they have some thinking to do in the off season, because right now this team isn't it. I see people in the chat saying Brunson needs to pass the ball more. To who? He's passing the ball. I love when people say that, but people don't realize when he does pass the ball, you have either guys who are not playmakers on this team, as you just alluded to. This team doesn't have a lot of playmakers who can actually create their own and take and get to the basket and score their own shots. That's one of the issues that this Knicks team has. If you sit Brunson down, the problem is when he goes to the bench, there's no production happening. There's nothing happening when he goes to the bench. He has to mainly be on the floor. So that tells you right there, for the people in the chat who are sitting here saying, well, Brunson is a ball hog, he doesn't pass the ball, or they think I'm talking negatively about the Knicks. It's not that I'm being realistic. Mm-hmm. You can't just pick favorites and say, oh, well, because this person, we had a health issue, unfortunately, this year with the team. But I think when you have a group of guys who are already on the floor, I think that, like I said, this is a professional sport. You have to go out there and play your role, and sometimes invent some. At the end of the day, there's an end goal for this team, right? And I think that the first round, I think if the Knicks lose to certain teams in the first round, it'll be very disappointing. But if they play against certain other teams, it won't be as disappointing because, well, that team is, where they are in the standings with the Knicks, and they're a better caliber team. But I think this Knicks team, the way they are made up, even if we did have a healthy Randle, I don't think having Randle and Brunson and OG with whoever else we have sprinkled on this team, I don't think that is enough. I think that we're missing. I don't think it's enough for this team to go where they're trying to go. I think to be considered a consistently known playoff team that makes the playoffs every year, one, and then two, I don't think it's enough to get to that Eastern Conference Finals championship round team, to beat a team like a Boston, to beat your Denver. I don't think that this team, sure, we have beat Denver, we have beat Milwaukee, but I think to be on a consistent basis to be able to beat teams, we're struggling to even do well in the first half of games. That's concerning. So when you get to the first round and you're playing a series in a game, and if the Knicks, okay, they take one, they lose the next one. They win the next one, then the next one they lost because they had to fight in the second half to come back in the game. So they're doing it to themselves. But I just think that the makeup of this team right now, outside of Randle, Brunson, I don't think Maybe I'll say if you have Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo again, and I'm including OG in that. I don't think the other guys are enough because they're just role players. I think we need more playmakers on this team for this team to grow.
Right. I do think we need at least one more. Jeff?
Wow, it's a lot to think about there, lady. That's great comments there. Um, I guess what stands out to me, especially from the last game, is I kind of think we're starting to see what playoff roles are materializing. Hey, Ajay. I think you saw the 9-man rotation. I think you saw Boyan in a role that kind of and in a lineup that kind of fit him pretty well. I think he had like 15 points in 17 minutes or something like that, which is exactly what this team needs. I think if you can and with OG healthy, we kind of have enough defenders where I feel like we can put him out there for maybe a little bit more extended burn than you normally would be able to. But I was actually really encouraged by Boyan's minutes. I think
Yeah.
Bogey hopefully is kind of settling in. The real disappointment was Alec Burks because I really feel like of all the players that are on the roster that could potentially have some of that shot creation, juice, if you will, for lack of a better term. He was the guy I thought that Mike could do that, because in his last stint with us, he was kind of a walking bucket at times. And, he's just been a disaster every which way but loose. So from that standpoint, and he's completely out of the rotation now, and I don't think he's getting back in at this point. I think he's done. I love what I'm seeing from Deuce McBride, but McBride's not he's not really a shot creator. He's doing a good job with what he does. I think he's improved a lot in that area, but I don't think you can expect him when defenses are keying on guys in the playoffs. I think it's not a recipe for success to expect that he's going to be able to go out there and fill that role. And Lady makes a great point. There's not really any good answers as far as that's concerned with this team right now. And so you kind of have to wonder if maybe we're going to have to go back to that formula of hitting the offensive glass really hard, getting extra shots that way, being elite defensively, and those other things. I mean, we do have good shooters. I love what DiVincenzo. I mean, DiVincenzo went 8 for 11 from 3 the other night.
Right.
It's just blowing away the franchise record for made 3-pointers. I didn't expect that when we signed him for a less than an MLE contract, and here the guy is starting and taking on a volume of shots that he's never really had before. But one thing I will say that I kind of liked, and maybe this is just, I'm sure it's just homerism on my part, but I kind of like there have been certain stretches, and it's usually been in the third quarter, where we have these moments where it's like Josh Hart as a quasi point guard, where he's just kind of out there and he's making his, you notice his assist totals are up. So I think we've seen some of this where Hart is just kind of, he gets the ball in his hands and he's moving quickly, right? He's making a decision. He's either getting it and getting it on to the next person, or he's getting it and he's attacking the basket and kicking somebody in the face. It's really quick. It's read and react. I think that's been effective for us. And he's had some games where he's scored a bunch. He's not ever going to be a shooter. That's not who he is. But we just need points. And so if he can help provide that, or at least help set up his teammates. I mean, the other night our assist percentage was through the roof. I think we had 34 assists on 44 field goals against Sacramento or something like that. Something insane. Like it was. As far as aesthetics go, that's the brand of basketball people always say they want to watch. And, you've seen increased assist totals from Brunson. He's had 2 11 assist games in the last 4, I think. So you're really saying he's not only is he distributing the ball, but people are making shots when he does, and so it's funny, we talk about all this, where's points going to come from, and you look at our net ratings. The net rating on offense is top 5 in the last 4 games, and the net defensive rating is 20th. Isn't that funny? The stats kind of tell a different story than what our eyes are telling us, because I'm seeing the same thing that Lady is seeing, and especially when Brunson's not on the floor. But Brunson is so good when he's on the floor that offense is probably elite, maybe even the best in the league when he's out there, and then it's the absolute worst in the league when he's not.
This, I think, was yesterday's game. I thought I heard them say was the first time the Knicks were a plus with Brunson off the floor. I don't know if that was for the season or for a long time. I think they were +3 when Brunson was off the floor last. Not a lot, but at least it wasn't, it wasn't.
Well, they had that stretch in the fourth quarter. At the beginning of the fourth, he sat, and McBride had hit 2 buckets. He had a 3 and a 2-pointer, and Bogey had a 3 also. And we went on like a 10-2 run, something like that. McBride may have even had 7 points in that stretch. I don't remember exactly how it went, but we had that stretch that was like a 10-0 run, and then Brunson came back on the floor shortly after that. But yeah, so I think that was mostly had to do with that stretch, and we got, that's what McBride and Bogey are going to have to do when Brunson sits. They're going to have to come through and give us those quick spurts of points.
Yeah, for sure. Ajay, who and what has stood out for you? I'll just say real quick, the last 3 games, I felt Bogey has played really well for us. He didn't hit every shot, but he's played really well for us, and his minutes are low. The last 3 games, Sacramento, he played 12 minutes. Huh? No. Milwaukee, he played 17 minutes. Chicago, he played 20. And Sacramento, he played 12. I don't know if he needs to start, but I think you could figure out some rotations where he can get more than 20 minutes, more than 17 minutes. I mean, I get it. His defense is not great. And when you're out there, you do put some pressure on the rest of your teammates if you're not a good defensive, the defensive player. And if you try to surround him with too much defense, then your offense is like, we've had lineups with Mitch, OG, and Hart. Like, what are you doing with that? You know what I mean? Or if you have Mitch, OG, Bojan, McBride, and Devo, maybe you could get away with that. McBride, Devo, Bojan, OG, and Mitch. Maybe you can get away with that. But the thing about it is, Mitch and Precious are not offensive players. So when you put them, out there, you're not getting much offensively. So I could see the challenge, but I agree. I would like to see him up to like 25, 28 minutes a game. Ajay, who and what has stood out for you this week? And also, given all of the injuries, the new players we've had to incorporate, just your thoughts on the fact that the Knicks, despite all of that, are just 1 game out of second place. What does that, bring up for you? What is that saying to you?
First of all, salute to you, Queen, Jeff, Lady and the Chef, and of course the chat, NBK, Knicks Nation, and all that. What stood out is, well, there are a few things, right? And I'm sure, throughout the show we'll talk about them. One of the things that stood out is that when we and we talk about that, on this channel and on Dope Soul Sports Talk, we always say, at least I know you and I, Queen, agree on this one. Defense don't win games or championship, nor does offense. Like, it's got to be like a balance of both. And this is what the past few games have shown us, right? Mm-hmm. That if you lacking in on any end on the floor, whether it's on offense or defense, you're not likely to win that game. So you don't have to be like great. Brunson don't have to score. Matter of fact, he scored 60 something point, but the defense wasn't great. We lost that game. So we got to have a good balance of everything, in order to win games. And that's going to take us far in the playoffs. I know, everything's more intense in the playoffs, but so we just got to match that intensity on other teams and we'll be fine. I was listening to you guys. There's like so many parameters that you guys not considering with this team. Listen, Thibodeau, you realize this is the first time he's had so many changes on his roster in the middle of a season, and we're not allowing him an adjust. I mean, it's not that we're not allowing him. He doesn't have an adjustment period that he would like to. He's not a great flexible coach. He's a very good coach, great coach, but he lacks flexibility in terms of knowing how to manage like the players. So he's got a lot of new parts, a lot of injuries. Like there's a lot of adversity, and he's somehow managed to juggle all this, to keep us top 4 for most of the season. I think it's that's one thing that stood out to me. That some way, somehow, with 4 games left, we're at arms. We could beat second seed. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And we control our own destiny at this point, right? If we win the next 4 games, we can't end worse than third. Like we're gonna be third or second if we win, because
if we do what this week?
If we win the remaining 4 games.
Oh, win out. Okay.
Okay. We're gonna be at least third. It depends on what happened with Orlando and Milwaukee. They're gonna beat up on each other. So one way or another, we're gonna be third seed if we win our games. So we control our own destiny. We just it's a great position to be in with all the. I mean, how many teams you could say lose their. Well, at least at the beginning of the season, we thought of Julius Randle as the 1B. Okay, now it's clear that he was the number 2, and because Jalen Brunson's like obviously the number 1 guy on this team now. All right, but Julius Randle, he's your second best player. In the beginning of the season, he was next to the other best player. You know what I'm saying? We lost OG Anunoby for a lot of games. We lost Mitchell Robinson for most of the season, and somehow we managed to just stay up there. Yeah, I think it's a great thing. So everything's not doom and gloom here in Knicks Nation. We're doing all right. And I'm not saying any one of you guys say that, and or anybody else. I think most people feel pretty good about where this team is. And that's what stands out to me, that at this point in the season, with only 4 games left, where everybody, like most people, feel good about this team.
Right.
Okay. And in terms of the players, we're seeing those guys getting comfortable in their role, and we're starting to see Thibodeau also getting comfortable with starting to understand his rotation, and he's starting to understand that when the guy doesn't have it, depending on the guy, of course, if Brunson don't have it, Brunson's staying on the court, but Precious Achiuwa don't have it, he's playing 3-4 minutes. You know what I'm saying? If he's not battling, he's not out there hustling, putting the effort, grabbing a rebound, trying to block shots, and Tibbs don't care about fouls. He wants you to foul those guys to prevent, to know that you're playing physical. So he's starting to get that. He's starting to understand that. His godson Alec Burks, he ain't playing no minute, right? Because there's no production out of him, right? So he's not giving us nothing. He ain't getting no playing time. So, and this is something Tom Thibodeau did not do in seasons past. So I think we're in a great place. That stands out to me. Of course, the player development, each guy, and when I say development, I'm not talking about in terms of who we drafted and so on and so forth. I'm talking about guys hitting their peak at the right time on the same team. We're talking about DiVincenzo is playing the best basketball of his career. So is Jalen Brunson. So was Julius Randle was, and Mitchell Robinson at the beginning of the season. We're like, wow, this guy, he's headed for Defensive Player of the Year. Like, this is how he started, right? Precious Achiuwa is playing the best ball that he's ever played wherever he went. Like he Deuce McBride. I mean, these guys are all playing
I
their
heart.
best. Josh Hart, all those guys, they are playing their best basketball right now. That stands out to me, that all these guys they all buying into this. They all starting to believe that they can get somewhere. And I think that's a great place to be. I think that, whether, we're obviously not going to have Julius Randle, but I think these guys believe in themselves, even without Julius Randle. That'll push them, through more further than they thought they could go.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do, and we could just actually move into the next segment. Brunson Play of the Month for March. The Knicks were 9-4 in March, 28.8 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, 5.8 assists. Jalen Brunson, if Jalen Brunson is not on this team, the Knicks are going straight to the lottery on a slide. That's just how well he's playing. It's to the point to me where I feel like he's every bit as good as anybody else in this league in terms of what they do for their team. When I think about the Joker, and I think about Giannis, and I think about who else I would put there, Embiid, Tatum, though some people would argue. Who somebody else, Jeff? You said
Luca.
Luca. Durant, what separates those guys? To me, what separates them is you know what they're going to do. You game plan against them, and there's still nothing you can do with them. They're still going to get theirs. And Brunson, to me, is in that category. Now, does he have to prove it in the playoffs? Not just the first round, but I mean, as you go deeper into the playoffs, yeah, he does. But you know what? So does Embiid. So does Tatum. So this guy is, in my opinion, bordering on superstardom. He's going out there against Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee has not been playing well, right? They lost to Washington. They lost to Memphis. They lost to Toronto, who I believe was on a 14 or 15 game losing streak going into that game. So they're not playing their best basketball. The Knicks come in with Brunson. You know what he's going to do. He doesn't have Randle. He doesn't have a lot of outlets, or you don't really know who's going to be the second scorer on any given night for the Knicks. And he puts up 43 points. He got help last night. I'm not saying we won just because of the 43. He got help last night. But he has been nothing short of amazing for the New York Knicks. He's our best player, and I really think he can be the best player on a championship contending team. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't need another star, right? Even Milwaukee went out and got Dame to play with Giannis, right? So I'm not sitting here saying he could do it by himself, but I really believe if they weren't able to bring in somebody better than him, if they brought in somebody just as good or a notch below, and I believe that's who Randle is when he's healthy, the Knicks are in good shape. Talk to me about Brunson, Player of the Month, and just what he's doing for us on the season since he's been here, since the injuries to Randle and OG. Ajay, Jeff, Lady and the Chef.
Well, Queen, so you mentioned that, quote unquote, in parentheses, she said, well, does he have to go improve it in the playoffs? I think he did that already.
Deeper into the playoffs, I mean.
You mean again? Because he's done it. He's done it. We've seen him in Dallas. Like he literally blew up two teams. And I say like blew up the roster. Had these guys start from scratch, right? Phoenix and who else? I forgot which.
Utah.
Oh, Utah. Yeah, they had these teams say, you know what? Let's go back to the drawing board because we ain't getting nowhere. So he did in Dallas, and he did it last season. Like we seen him do it. So he went deep. He's been deep to the playoffs. Didn't they make it? I mean, granted, his role, he was not the top
I was
guy.
going to ask you, does it make a difference when you're going deep into the playoffs as the best player on the team, or going deep into the playoffs as the second best player who stepped up in some key games? Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's got a. I don't want to say prove, but yeah. I mean, we know he can do it. Now if he doesn't make it deep into the playoffs, there's an argument to be made that he doesn't have the right roster. He doesn't have the right guys around him. You know what I'm saying? You can't really look at Jalen Brunson and say, he didn't deliver because we didn't make it to the Eastern Conference Final.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because we know he's capable and he's unstoppable. And we're not saying this because we're crazy, delusional Knicks fans.
Mhm.
I'm repeating what I hear other coaches and other top players are saying.
Right.
I mean, I've been hearing that all month. Like, we don't know what to do with that guy. Like, what do we do? You double, you triple, you blitz, and he's still getting his. So, listen,
I got to get that Brunson jersey.
good luck, because not too many sizes available. Like yeah, but I think we're gonna go deep in the playoffs, even with the roster we have, and of course that depends on
Wow.
matchup, on the bracket that we fall in. We got to talk about that.
Well, we're gonna talk about it. I have a slide of the playoff
yes
today, but it's gonna shift from day to day.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna.
We'll talk
It all
about
depends, man. That's a lot of people say blindly, like throw it out there. Yeah, we could play this, we could play that. Nah, you got to look at the bracket where you fall in. That counts for a lot.
Are there times, Ajay, when I was saying earlier that there's some games I watch the Knicks and I feel like we're going to lose in the first round. Other games in which I watch the Knicks, I feel like we go into the Eastern Conference Finals. Is that how it is with you? Or you basically, regardless of how they play, you have a sense of their ceiling in the playoffs?
Regardless of how they play. So, and I say this all the time. This is the NBA. On any given night, anything can happen. That means you could have a San Antonio Spur that have a great game against us, and you could have us that have like a horrible game. Case in point, when we played with Philly, we I mean, it was a 79-73 score or something crazy, like a college final score we had. And on some nights, but because the one constant that, and there's something that we rarely saw this season, is that the Knicks came in and they didn't fight. Okay, we've seen very little of that, and because they always have that fight in them, because they're always ready to go, they always want to keep pushing. Like, it doesn't matter how, even when we're down 15-20, I'm like, listen, if it's not the fourth quarter and then like with 2 minutes left, we down by 20, I feel we have a chance, because at any given moment these guys could wake up and tighten up the D and then start hitting their shots. We have guys that can hit shots, and we have guys that can play defense. So it's very quick, to turn things around in the NBA. We've seen it all season throughout the league.
Mm-hmm.
Not just with the Knicks, but throughout the league. So I feel like we always have a chance to win a game. Like I said, until the final buzzer. That's why I watch every game. We could be down by 20 with 30 seconds left. I'm watching until the end.
Okay. Jeff, and you can also add in, Jeff. Brunson is eligible for a 4-year, $156.5 million extension. But if he goes to free agency, he'll be able to sign for 30% of the 2025-2026 salary cap that can reach as high as 155 million. So the salary hasn't been set, obviously, for the NBA for the 2025-26 season. That could mean a first year salary of 46.5 million and a total contract of over $270 million. And I know on some shows we've talked about Brunson giving the Knicks a break. He might give the Knicks a break, but it's going to be in free agency. It's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be. I would be shocked if he signed an extension. I see him going into free agency, and maybe if he doesn't sign for the max of 270, maybe 250. But I don't see him signing an extension. But anyway, Jeff, just your thoughts on Brunson since he's been here this month, since the injuries. And if you want to comment on the extension, you can. You don't have to.
Well, so I think that you said it so eloquently, and it wasn't just that he dropped 43 against Milwaukee. It was that it was an efficient 43. He was 16 of 32 from the field. He got to the line 11 times. He made 9 of them. It's one thing to get 43 if you're taking 40 shots. This is doing it efficiently in spite of the defense doing everything in their power to stop you. And when you have guys like Damian Lillard saying, yeah, this guy's one of the best guys in the NBA, game recognizes game as far as I'm concerned. And Dame Dalla knows elite talent when he sees it. So from that standpoint, just phenomenal. I feel like he's improved over the last 3 months. Like I think that it's almost as if the more difficult it gets, the better he plays, which is insane. But it just feels that way. I think his playmaking has been way up in the last week or so, at least. And I don't know. I'd have to look back at the stats, but I know for a fact that I've seen some more double-digit assist games out of him. And maybe that's part and parcel of the fact that he knows that Deuce McBride can hit shots now. He knows that Dante DiVincenzo is reliable to hit shots. So you got more options that are good shooters out there. And he's always been one who can spray the ball, but he's like, well, why am I going to pass the ball? I'm going to make the play that gives us the best chance to score. And a lot of times that's just calling his own number. I mean, and there's nothing selfish about that, in fact, I'll kind of call out the semifinals when UConn played Iowa, in the women's tournament. I felt like Paige Buckers didn't take enough shots. I thought she was too unselfish, and she was the only one who really had it going, and she had only took 7 threes. I would have liked to have seen her take 11 or 12, because she's a great shooter and she's a great scorer, and it's nice to defer, but there's some times when you're that alpha player, and Brunson is that alpha player, that you just have to say, no, I'm calling my own number because I give us the best chance to win, And so, and I think that's Brunson's personality. He's going to do whatever gives us the best chance to win. I think his defense has been better. He's never going to be an all defensive player just because he's limited by his size, but he works his tail off. I mean, he's second in the league in charges drawn, even though we hold our breath every time he does it because I don't want to see him hurt because, that's really our season. But he's everything that we could have asked for and more. To me, he's a legitimate MVP candidate. He's a legitimate 1A star. All of that other stuff needs to go away as far as I'm concerned. It's just, to me, I've seen him do it in the postseason. And look at these other teams, almost all of these other MVP candidates. Luka has Kyrie. Giannis has Dame. Tatum has Brown and Kristaps and Holiday and White. They've got all of these second stars. Kevin Durant has Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So they all have these supplementary pieces who are pretty much 1As. And then you have Brunson. Yeah, he has Julius, who I would put in that category or slightly below, but he hasn't had that since January, right? And so these last few months, and his stats have gone up, and his efficiency has pretty much stayed pat. His 3-point shooting percentage is a little bit down, but that's understandable because he's not getting those kick out looks like he was when Randle was healthy, because there's no one with that gravity on this team. But for him to do what he's doing without a second fiddle, it really reminds me of Patrick Ewing in his heyday. Patrick never had the second star, and we were almost always a second round exit at worst. We were always in the mix, and did the Bulls torture us? Of course they did. Did we have bad luck against Indiana? Yes. Did we have bad luck against Miami with the whole Charlie Ward incident? Of course we did. But that's what it reminds me of, and that kind of that's special to me. That's unique, and I guess I'll close up by saying, on the extension front, it doesn't make any sense for him to sign the extension. Why would you leave all that money on the table? I think he'll go to free agency, not because he wants to go elsewhere, but just because that's how he gets his money, right? I mean, there's a and so, but I think he loves it in New York. He's got his buddies here with him. He's got he's the brightest star on the brightest stage in the best city in the world. I mean, he's and this is a guy who was a second round pick and who grew up around the Garden and Patrick Ewing. So I mean, you want to talk about living a dream? That'd be like you or me getting to do that. And be an MVP on, like, I can't even imagine. But so he's going to get paid a big sum of money, but he's worth it. And you just cut the check.
Lady of the show. Oh, you muted.
I have trains that go by sometimes my apartment. I think Brunson is worth whatever he's asking for. He's put himself in that class of superstar players. I know initially at the beginning of the season, a lot of people were wondering if Brunson is considered a superstar, but I think that if you watch the way he played before he came to the Knicks, he was really good. And one of the things that stands out for me with him is that when he came to the Knicks, his game has grown even more. Sometimes I think in the past the Knicks would get players and either, injuries came about or guys just didn't play to the capability that they were playing on a previous team they were on. And I think Brunson his game has just elevated to a different level. Mm-hmm. And he's in that realm of superstar status to me. I think that he's exemplified nothing but exceptional work night in, night out, and what he's doing. I mean, from his footwork to his confidence on the court, you can just see that all the work that he's put in truly works on his craft. I mean, to that level of like, and I'm not comparing him to, but like how Kobe has that focus, how you hear players who say, I was taking 200 shots a night, and how Steph Curry can knock down shots from wherever he is. Brunson has those moves down pat that he does. And I feel so confident with whatever move he's making to the basket. So I think whatever he's looking to get paid, he's worth every penny, because along with what Tibbs has done with this team and what he was working with the players that he has, I think it says a lot about Brunson from where he's brought this team. He's built a system of trust. He's showed leadership. And I think when you have a guy who's playing unselfish ball, but selfish at times, and shows that aggression, that confidence, that, it's infectious on other players on the team. And I think, with Brunson and what he's done, I read earlier too that he's the first player in Knicks history with 3 consecutive games of 35 or more points and 8 or more assists. And I think he's also nominated for Player of the Week for this week also, or for last week rather. So I just think that Brunson, the Knicks haven't had a player like this in a long time, not a point guard.
Mhm.
And the Knicks we've been saying, true Knicks fans, we have been saying for a long time, the Knicks need a true point guard. And we finally got one, and one that not only knows how to score, but can orchestrate the offense, who can set other guys up on the floor. And I'm very impressed with what I've seen. I thought the Knicks got him at a great deal, literally a steal, for what they got him at. But I think that Brunson, to me, he's in that category with the players you were naming, Queen, earlier. Those greats that are playing in the league. And my only thing is that I hope that, like Jeff was saying, that Brunson doesn't end up like Ewing or like a Melo, where you don't have that help.
Right.
Because that would be really unfortunate to see this Knicks team not bring in, a sidekick for him and Randle to play alongside with him. And it's no shade to OG, but I think that, he is going to need someone else like those other great teams have, where they have that, dynamic duo or the three-headed monsters on certain teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also bringing in the right player that's going to work, because while Dame Dollar and Giannis have had their success, sometimes the grass isn't always greener when you bring another superstar or a player who's just as good as that other player. It doesn't always work out. So that's another thing that I worry about when whatever the Knicks decide to do in the offseason, we're bringing someone else in to either be that backup point guard or play alongside Jalen Brunson and Randle. We need someone that's going to mesh in and gel in with these guys and be able to play along the offense with them. But I think Brunson is worth every penny that he's asking for sure.
Yeah. Before we move on to somebody wanted to say something? No. Before we move on to Randle's injury, if Randle is healthy next season, do we need what's the level of player we're talking about? Like if a Drew Holiday, who's a free agent, and I believe he's going to re-sign with Boston. But if he was a free agent, would that be enough? Are we talking if they traded for DeJounte Murray, would that be enough? Or are we talking about an Embiid level, Giannis level type player for Brunson on this team as it's constructed? And just briefly, so we can get into Randle. Anybody?
Well, I think there's a lot of flexibility here. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go. But you look at the roster and where do you want the upgrades to come from, and what do you want out of that player? So, if we can upgrade the 5 spot, like, and iHeart has been fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but if you can get a Joel Embiid, that the guys would be phenomenal. Other than that, I actually think that OG works really well if he's healthy, and so I kind of would, we saw that stretch run in January where you saw OG on the court with Randle and Brunson, and we were like 14-2 or whatever it was, and you're like, ooh, do we really need anything else? And then to me, there's like, or do we just, kind of get an upgrade at the 2 spot where we can, move DiVincenzo to the bench, and get someone with a little bit more shot creation, so you can stagger with the second unit and also plays well alongside Brunson. I don't know. I'm just throwing it like
I was just saying the level of player. The level.
Yeah. And I think that's what's the difficulty is. I think that you could get a Paul George level player in there, or maybe a little bit lower, and still be fine. And again, there's not a championship team formula where you just plug in variables X, Y, and Z, and that's what gets you there, right? So,
right.
that's a difficult question to answer. I definitely think we need to upgrade the talent on the roster, as Lady was saying before. But I think there's flexibility to go about that in several different ways, and some of them involve a top shelf player, and then some of them involve maybe lesser players that have certain complementary skills that
Right.
that would just boost our overall
Right.
efficiency.
I got you. That there's multiple ways we can do it. Lady in the chef.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like the Knicks do, to some degree, I feel like we need that higher caliber player. And I think if they do go in that angle, I think there's some decisions you need to make as far as, do you keep Randle and then go after someone who's better caliber player wise? But if they decide to keep Randle, I think you still need someone maybe like a DeJounte Murray or someone in that level,
Right.
because you need someone else only. And the reason why I say that is because while I think Josh Hart and Devo, like you alluded to, they're role players, we need a playmaker, someone who could do what Randall does on the scoring end,
Right.
that bully ball, and also being a presence on the defensive end as well. So I think it can go one or two ways. I'm with Jeff on that. I think it's how they want to play it out. But right now, I think that, yeah, there still needs to be some construction done on with the roster of this team.
Yeah. And it's so funny. And this is the difference between a team on paper and once you see them play. When we made that trade, everybody was like, "Ooh, we are championship contender." Now you watch them play. I don't know. But in all fairness, the team hasn't been together, because when we were together, 15-2 before Randall and OG went down. Ajay?
So, and knowing that the front office that we have, I don't anticipate them making, any huge move, unless, of course, somebody shake loose like a Joel Embiid or Devin Booker, one of those caliber guys, right? I think they're very comfortable and confident in the team that we have.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces here and there that they might move, like Alec Burks and stuff like that don't work. That hasn't panned out, right? Um, and they're gonna sit at the end of the season. They're gonna say, you know what, we didn't have training camp. We threw these guys in the mix in the middle of the season. You know, if we have this thing from the start, from the get go, we're gonna be, a team to reckon with. That's how they've always thought. That's how they've always concluded.
Mhm.
And if that doesn't work, they'll combine that with the money part. You know what I'm saying? Because they consider that a lot with this front office. They're very conscious about the luxury tax and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
um I don't foresee them making any huge acquisition over the summer. They'll move some. Like I said, they're very comfortable with what they have now. They feel they could win with what we have now. The pieces that they could probably get rid of. The guys who came from Detroit.
Mhm.
Precious Achua maybe on the block. You know what I'm saying. So,
Mhm.
but the core, I think they're gonna keep the core.
That's
The
a whole other question too.
the
We'll
Villa.
never get out of here. Who's the core?
Well, I mean the core, the Villanova. Josh Hart. What I mean, we know who the core is.
Really?
Brunson, Randle, and you add on the DiVincenzo, Josh Hart. Right now, it looks like Isaiah Hartenstein has made his way into the core, and Mitchell Robinson he's always been there, part of the core. Um, yeah, I don't think they're gonna move any one of those guys unless something major becomes available. A major player becomes available. And I'm talking like a major superstar becomes available. Otherwise, these guys, they're not going anywhere. They're not gonna get rid of Hartenstein just to get Zubac or something like that. They're not gonna do that. That kind of sideway trade.
We shall see. We shall see. All right. So Randle, everyone's heard, is out for the season. This was the interview with um, Bleacher Report. He said, and I believe it's Chris Hayes from Bleacher Report. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I want everyone to know that I did everything in my power to get back this season. That was my intention to be playing right now. That's why I didn't opt for surgery when it happened. But what caused me to finally go through with getting surgery was about 5 weeks ago. I went through a full contact session and re injured my shoulder. My ish wasn't stable. I felt like I was in the same state when I first dislocated it, and it's been an uphill battle ever since. Choosing to get surgery was my only option at this point. It's frustrating, but I'm at peace knowing I tried everything. And that was Julius Randle's statement on the injury. How did you how did you feel when you got the news, and what does the team need to do for these remaining 4 games and into the playoffs if they still want to make the Eastern Conference Finals? Like, what needs to happen? Lady in the Chef, we'll start with you. And we'll try to keep our comments to like 2-3 minutes.
Okay, sure. I think when I first initially heard the news, I wasn't, I didn't feel any specific type of way. I just was just in a situation where I felt like, the whole situation sucks. I think Randall was just starting to um come into his own this season after having a slow start from the ankle surgery, and he was having such a great season. So, I just hate to see that happen to like players. I joked around with Diva and I said, Randall should be making a tweet or a post like Mitch and say, I don't get it. I do everything right. And this happens to me. But I was like, he ain't got to do all of that. But, and I just think it's unfortunate because I do think that this team does need Randall, especially in the postseason, in order to win. Um, I think it's tricky as far as where this team ends up for the remainder of the season, because I think the standings is really tricky as it's going to change each day up until the postseason. So I think even if the Knicks win the next 4 or go 3-1, I think it's tricky as far as like, well, who are they going to face in that first round? So yeah, they can win all of them, which I want to see them win as many as they can. But then the other part of me is like, well, who are we going up against? And I think that if the Knicks should actually try to play their cards right, and I mean, we know they're not going to drop. At least I don't think they'll drop to like 6th. But I think it's like, well, who are we going to be facing in that first round? And I think that that's kind of like the trickiness of it. Is because they can go ahead and go 3-1 or 4-0 for the next 4 games, but then I'm thinking, well, okay, who are we playing against? And I know they want to do as much as possible to avoid Boston, so that's the other half of it. So I think it's just, and I'm also curious to see how this team plays without Randall in the postseason.
Me too. I wanted to see how Randall played. How Randall played in the postseason. Ajay.
And well, so I was kind of hoping, not kind of, I was really hoping that Julius Randle would return, and I thought they were keeping him out because they really wanted to save him for the playoffs. So I really thought he was gonna make it back. So I was disappointed to learn that he wasn't gonna make it back, and in understanding and after like reading and and several explanation, that was the right thing. He went about it the right way. So if some people are like, well, he should have had the surgery back then. If you can understand what he did was the best thing. It's simple it's simple math at this point. If you can add, you could tell that if he had surgery in January, he wouldn't be available at all.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't be available until June, July, right? So he took a chance, try to rehab and see if he could at least be here for the playoffs. So that didn't work out. Hats off to him for even giving it a shot. for even try to be here for this team. Um, in terms of how well we gonna do in the playoffs,
Or
listen,
what we need to do to mitigate his presence.
we're already doing it, right? So we already getting these guys, and we like to say these guys, they're playing um they're playing a role that they're not used to. Well, this is the training for them to play that role that they're not used to, because there's nobody else to do it. So they're going to have to do it, right? I mean, these guys, they're just going to have to step up, right? Bogdanovich, he's going to have to give us that 15, 17 points that we need from him every night. When Precious
In the 8 minutes that he gets.
in the
I'm
no,
I'm
in the
exaggerating.
15 minutes that he gets, listen, he's a sharpshooter. He's going to have to do it. And Precious Achua, when he gets his minutes, he's just going to have to, just do what he has to do, man. Be a defensive pest out there. Play the pick and roll, defend the pick and roll, crash the boards. We have to do all those little things that Julius Randle used to do. Listen, we're not gonna make up the 20 and 10, the 20 points, 10 rebounds that he used to give us, right? But there are other ways to make up for that, because remember, Julius Randle also gave us I don't know, 3 turnovers a game. There's a lot of things. Sometimes he wasn't playing defense, so we could put make up for all that stuff with being constantly have defensive effort all the time, to make up for all that stuff. And we've been doing it. Like, we've been winning games without Julius Randle. Not because we don't need him. Of course we need Julius Randle, but because the team is able to adjust. That next man up mentality. They really embrace that. If even if Jericho Sims have to come in and be a pest and aggravate somebody by committing a few fouls. We have 6 fouls to use with Jericho Sims. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things we could do to make up for the absence of Julius Randle. So, the team and the coaching staff, they're just gonna have to figure out, depending on the matchup, depending on who we're playing. We have many weapons. We have many ways to go about this.
I mean, I think our scheme at this point is basically Brunson drive and kick. Brunson score, and then if he doesn't score, he gets in the lane and he creates shots for others. And I think if those guys are hitting their shots, it bodes well for us. I wouldn't be surprised in the playoffs if teams just basically gave Brunson his and chose to shut down everybody else. That might be their best strategy. How much can he score? And if he scores 40, 45, and you stay at home with the other guys, banking on the fact that maybe they won't be able to create that, we might see some of that in the playoffs. But Jeff, a few minutes on that.
Ooh, it's funny because just based on what the injury was, I was always kind of the one who was skeptical, just based on the kind of game that Randle plays, that he was going to be able to come back, just because he's such a physical player down there, and the post, when he's doing what we want him to do and when he's at his best, he's using his shoulders to great effect. And if he couldn't really do that, like, it just seemed to me like he was on borrowed time anyway. Even if he came back, it was just like a ticking time bomb until it got to the point where he was going to need surgery anyway. But I just have the utmost respect, because I know how much work he put in to try and get back, and strengthening that shoulder to try and give it a go. And he did everything that he could do. And I just think this is a guy who all he wants to do is win. He saw this opportunity. He saw what we were like in January before he got hurt, and he's like, man, this is it. This is the team. This is the situation that I've been waiting for. I don't have to be the primary option. Now I have the defensive wing to help me out. So I can be freer to get more boards and do other things, because OG is the perfect skeleton key to unlock everything. And so here we go. And then, the lead, somebody went ahead and popped the balloon. So, I kind of expected it, but I guess the finality of it was kind of a blow. But at the same time, there was also this feeling that, well, at least now we know, right? Because once you know with certainty, then you can move on, right? And so we know we know we're going to be without him, so now we can move on. And it looks like we're going to have OG back. He wasn't even on the injury report last time. I don't think he's listed on there today. So it seems like maybe that tendinopathy is at a good spot right now.
Mhm.
Hopefully, knock on wood and everything else, obviously, because I really think that he remains the key now. And not even from an offensive perspective necessarily. I just think that he does so much for us defensively, and he allows guys like DiVincenzo to gamble more for steals and get out in the open court, get some easy baskets, get more transition opportunities. So I think Anunoby staying healthy is the key to us moving forward. And if he's in the lineup, look, we're 16-3 when he's in there, and he hasn't had a negative plus minus game since he's gotten here. So, obviously having him on the floor, and he gives us such versatility. I think he makes Bojan much more playable. I think, and I said this before, and I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive, but I really think that the Milwaukee game was kind of a glimpse into what the playoff rotation is going to look like. I think we're going to go with 9 guys. I think we're going to have Bogey as that kind of instant offense kind of a player. We've got a lot of different ways that we can utilize him now with the player personnel that we have, because I think we can hide him defensively a lot better. I think you might even get to see him a little bit more with Brunson, which I think will help with players. And I also think that in the minutes when JB can't be on the floor, he's going to be vitally important. He's going to have to do like he did in Milwaukee. He's off the floor. Okay, just get us a couple buckets, keep us in the game, And even in the first half when he played against Milwaukee, you saw that when we were kind of struggling, nobody was kind of really getting going. In the second quarter, he hit 2 or 3 really big shots that we were still trailing, but he allowed us to stay within striking distance. And so I think that helps, but I really think it's going to be the 9 guys we saw. I think it's going to be Deuce. I think Deuce is going to get plenty of opportunity. I think he's earned it. I think you're going to see spot minutes from Precious, 4 or 5 minutes in the first half. If he gives you good minutes in that, maybe you see him a little bit in the second half. If you don't, I don't think you're going to see him at all in the second half. I think you're going to see a lot of Josh Hart, a lot of Dante DiVincenzo. I think you're going to see a lot of 2 starters on the floor at all times. So you mix and match a little bit more that way.
Right.
And I think all of that helps and gives us the possibility, because and I'll finish up saying this, so Orlando and Milwaukee played each other twice in the last 4 games, right? And so that means one of those teams has to win. So that makes it difficult for us. That pretty much means we have to win out if we want to get to the 2 or the 3 spot, which I don't really care where we end up as long as we stay in the top 6. And we just have to go 1 and 3 in order to secure that. So I'm pretty confident that with the way this team is, that we're going to manage to do that. But I think as long as we stay in the top 6, I'm not so much worried about home court advantage. I feel like we can take a game on the road. Orlando is MSG South, so I think that's pretty much 7 home games. Not that Orlando's an easy team to beat or anything like that. I'm just saying there are tons of Knick fans down there. There's going to be a pro Knick contingent there, kind of like when we play in Atlanta. Indiana is a tough team, but teams that don't play good defense typically don't perform well in the playoffs. So I think if you get them in a 7-game series, I could see us stealing a game in Indiana. We beat Cleveland last year in Cleveland, so I think if we had to, we could do that again. don't really want to play Philadelphia, to be honest. If we can avoid that, I would, so if that means that we're not the 3 seed and Philly gets the 6 seed, I think that's okay. That we don't get the 3 seed. I would much rather us play Orlando or Indiana, just because I think Joel and Maxey are just a problem, and that team seems like they're playing real well right now. I know
we'll definitely get into the playoff picture and talk about who we're gonna play. I have to let me see how would this work. Oh no, I'm trying to figure out a way to put a timer on our on the show without it covering everything, so we can kind of keep our comments like to around 2 minutes, so we could just keep cycling through. And I do the same thing, so I'm trying to figure out how to put a timer somewhere on the side. I'll figure it out. But if we could just be conscious of it, because we got so much more that I want to talk about. I mean, we didn't have Queen's Court last week, so all right, just really quick, 1 minute, little over 1 minute, if you need. So, any concern that McBride only got 18 minutes versus Milwaukee? Is that just a matchup issue, or do you think that shades of things to come with OG being back, that he may go back to just backing up Brunson, and the need to have him play besides Brunson is just not there anymore? Ajay, any concern about McBride getting 18 minutes versus Milwaukee?
No, I mean 18 minutes is not terrible either. Like we think it's a problem because exactly, because Deuce has been playing 40, but 18 minutes is a good amount of minutes. I mean, he is still a backup guard. You know what I'm saying? So 18 minutes is right up where he needs to be, or he should be. So no, I mean, it's not a concern. I'm more concerned about what's Precious getting like 5 minutes or whatever that was. I don't even think he got 5 minutes against Milwaukee. But
why are you concerned? Because Mitch is taking Precious minutes. So do you think Precious would bring something that Mitch doesn't?
No. So because Precious, I still think, he's a better 4 than he's a 5.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have, remember, we're out Julius Randle. So I figure, again, maybe it depends on matchup. If we play a team that have a big 4, like a bigger 4, that maybe we're not going to put Josh Hart on him. Maybe we're going to need a bigger body to put, it's not Mitch, because I think Mitch and iHeart are set as far as I'm concerned. But I'm talking more about the minutes at the 4, because right now at the 4 we have Bogdanovich, we have Precious, and Josh Hart plays the 4, and sometimes OG Anunoby plays the 4. So this is where it gets a little tricky for me. I don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs, but I think we'll need all 4 of those guys at any given moment, depending on where we play. And
Gotcha.
shout out to Coach, who says Precious looked bad with Mitch. He does. He does look bad with Mitch, but he looks better when, let's say, OG's at the 3, he's at the 4, and iHeart's at the 5. So I don't know. They got to look at the film to figure out what they're gonna do. No, but going back to Deuce, I'm not concerned, because 18 minutes is a good amount of minutes. He could do a lot of damage in that 18 minutes.
Okay, Lady and the Chef, any concerns? McBride's minutes went back to 18 with OG's return?
No, I agree. I think 18 minutes is still a lot of minutes to get something done and still make an impact, whether that's on a defensive end. I mean, I didn't really. I liked Deuce when I thought he did a great job when he was getting 40 plus minutes a game. But I just think that now that you have OG back, you have Mitchell Robinson back in the lineup, I don't think that Deuce needs to play. I mean, if he some nights he may get 25 minutes, he may get close to 30 minutes. I think Tibbs right now is still playing with seeing who's doing what. And I think once it gets to the playoffs, players' minutes are gonna differentiate, because I think some nights, and I even said sometimes I think like Shake should get a couple of minutes, just because if you have a guy hypothetically like a Deuce and maybe he's off, you can bring him in. And sometimes a guy coming off the bench could be a spark off the bench. Yeah, I think that you have Deuce, Bojan that could be X factors in the games in the playoffs, but I think Deuce playing 18, I'm not concerned about that. I think that's okay.
All right, Jeff, your thoughts on it?
I think that's about right for Deuce. I think 18 is a good number for him, especially with Anunoby being back.
When I look at that scoring or lack thereof, I don't know. I hope Tibbs just keep it in the back pocket if we're not getting scoring, that he won't hesitate to put Deuce in there next to Brunson just to see if we can get something out of. He's shooting 54% as a starter from 3. Bojan is playing better now, but he's hit or miss. Hart is hit or miss. Burks is miss. Precious is not an offensive player. Mitch is not an offensive player. Anything Hartenstein is giving you, he's giving it off of Brunson. OG, for what he brings, I'm not sure he's he's a 14 to 16 point per game player. He is. He is that. But with the injury, with the elbow, is he even that? So I don't know. I'm a little concerned about us taking somebody who's been playing well for us on the offensive end and reducing his minutes to half. Is there anywhere else we can steal some minutes so that he can get some time besides Brunson?
But you don't feel like Deuce can give you those points in the 18, 20 minutes that he's getting? Because I agree with you. I think the 3-point shooting efficiency is there for Deuce. It's high. But I noticed with Deuce, if he doesn't come through for us points wise, he could have a great defensive game. But if he doesn't come through for us points wise, he makes up for it that next game. And he's like, all right, I'm going to come through and give them something this game because the last game I only gave him 5 points. I only gave him 8 points. And then that next game, he'll come through and give you 20, 23 points. But you don't feel like in 18 minutes, Deuce can get the job done and give us the points that we need?
No, because I feel like unless you're quickly where you're coming in and becoming the offense in the 20 minutes that you're there, like just taking a lot of shots and it's basically about you. I don't think that's Deuce's game. I think Deuce kind of gets his in order for him to do that, he would have to come in and start putting up shots. And I'm not sure that's what we want from him. So if Bojan is on, it's less of an issue. If Devo is doing his things, it's less of an issue. If we're getting scoring other way, it's less of an issue. But we don't have a lot of scorers on this team, and he's been really good for us. So I would like to see him get 25 minutes a game, even if that means sometime next to Brunson. But I hear what you're saying. Where are those minutes coming from? Where's those extra 7 minutes? Where are they going to come from? So I get it. It looks like he's going to be back basically whatever minutes Brunson doesn't play, those will be his minutes. That's how it was before he went out.
Well, he's doing a little more than that, though, because Brunson's playing, 38 to 40, so that's only 10 minutes. If he's getting 18, that means he's playing
a little more
8 with, he's playing almost half his minutes with Brunson, it seems like then.
Yeah. Shout out to Paris Duggar. I'll bet Deuce is our best pressure shooter now. We'll see. The playoffs will definitely squeeze him. So I've seen people look great in the playoffs and look mad regular and not even regular, like they didn't belong in the playoffs. Shout out to Paris Duggar. This was an earlier one. Our second offensive option is our D. Trust that. Paris Duggar, I know we harp on the offense, but it's the defense that will propel us to winning the series. Jabroni's _Z. The playoffs are about defense. All our bench role players have to do is play elite defense and we'll be fine. Defense wins championships. I so disagree. I just so disagree, particularly in this offensive-minded NBA this season. I don't care how good your defense is. You're not holding these teams down, particularly in the playoffs. You're playing better teams the deeper you go into the playoffs. You're not holding these teams down with just defense. Think about 4 years ago, 3 years ago when we lost to Atlanta. We had the best. We were top 5 in defense. We couldn't score. We went home.
Yep.
Think about when we played Miami. We were top 2 through two playoff series. If I'm not mistaken, we were second in defense. We couldn't get shots. We couldn't get timely shots. We went home. I'm not saying we don't need to play defense.
Balance.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you think you just going in relying on your defense and you don't need offense, you're going home. I really believe the defense keeps you in the game, gives you an opportunity, but your offense has to come through. If Brunson doesn't get any help, I don't care how good our defense is. How can we score enough? You holding these teams to 98 points every single game?
Right.
I don't think so. Anybody else want to comment on that really quick before we move to the playoff seeding?
No, I agree with you. You're right on with that. And 4 seasons ago was the perfect example. We were, you said top 5. We might have been the best defense that year. We might have been up there, like better than top 5. But we went home in 5 games because we couldn't score the ball. We couldn't get the ball through the hoop. Last year, we didn't have a defense problem last year when we went home against Miami. We just couldn't score.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Miami was killing us, and because we couldn't play defense. We played very good defense against Miami. As a matter of fact, all the series they went through, we give them the harder time. When it comes to defense, more so than the other teams. But we still went home because we couldn't score.
Right. Last year's team had Brunson too, Paris. Last year's team had Brunson as well. And we went home. All right, let's look at the Eastern Conference Finals. It might be too small, but the Knicks are there. They're 4th in the Eastern Conference right now, 46-32, tied with Orlando. Orlando was in 3rd because they have the tiebreaker versus the Knicks. Milwaukee. I think Orlando and Milwaukee play each other twice this week.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And both Milwaukee and Orlando have the tiebreaker. Am I mistaken about Milwaukee?
No,
you're
Milwaukee,
right.
Indiana, and Orlando all have the tiebreaker against us, and we have the tiebreaker over Cleveland, Miami, and Philly.
Right. So in order to get that second seed, we have to win. Yeah, that's gonna be tough because you can't be tied with Milwaukee or Orlando. You have to have a better record than them by at least a half game. But yeah, that's where the Knicks are. And if the playoffs ended today, we would play the Cleveland Cavaliers again. We'd have home court advantage, but we'd play Cleveland. Your thoughts on playing Cleveland? And we're just musing. Tomorrow, this can look totally different.
Right.
But your thoughts on playing Cleveland? You like that matchup, or is there anybody else you would like to see in the first round? Lady in the shop?
Yeah, I like Cleveland. The Cleveland just doesn't have an answer for the Knicks. I like the Knicks going against Cleveland potentially in the first round. If not Cleveland, I would say either between Indiana or Orlando. Just because I feel like we're a better matchup versus going against Philly or Miami. I think if the Knicks want to get smoothly out of the first round, it needs to be either Cleveland, Indiana, or Orlando, and not Philly or Miami. Even though we've done well against Philly both times we played them, or if it was 3 times, And then Miami tends to heat up, no pun intended, but they tend to heat up at this time of the year. And Miami also plays very dirty. So you have to watch them. But I think first round, Cleveland, Orlando, or Indiana, that's who I would like to see, with Cleveland being first, the Knicks go against in the first round.
Wow. Jeff? I mean, yeah, Jeff and then Ajay.
Yeah, Cleveland is still a good team, and they're dangerous, and I think that would be we would definitely be circled on their schedule. Hopefully, we're still in their heads, but I wouldn't just write off a series against Cleveland. Especially with us not having Julius. I again, as long as we stay in the top 6, I don't really care, because I think that for us, having a week off to kind of rest our players is going to be as important as anything, because once you get into the first round of the playoffs, you have a couple of days off in between games because of television. So I think that bodes well for us as far as playing shorter rotations, playing Brunson heavy minutes, those kinds of things, which I think are kind of in our future, especially the way if it almost feels like we're playing 8.5 guys right now. And so I think it may shrink to just 8 by the time the playoffs come, if not 7.5. And so I don't, I'm confident we can win a series against Cleveland, Orlando, or even Miami. But again, I just think that let's get into the playoffs in the top 6, so we don't have to worry about the play-in mess, and then just go from there. But I don't think anything's going to be easy. I don't, if you expect that we're just going to cakewalk through a playoff series against any of those teams, I just don't see it, because we're going to have struggle scoring points. I think, they're going to key in on Jalen Brunson even more. And when you don't have to prepare for anybody else but one team, it's really easy to load up. We saw that in the Atlanta series a couple years ago, and I'm encouraged by what I've seen from Brunson dealing with the blitz coverages and all of those things. But the playoffs are a different animal. How does DiVincenzo step up? How does Josh Hart step up? How's OG's elbow hold up? All of those things are questions.
Yeah. And they're going to step their game up too. Like, some of these teams are going to be unrecognizable in the playoffs, because you see them play one way in the playoffs. I mean, in the regular season, and they get to the playoffs and show you something, a bit different. Like Miami last year, when all of a sudden they became a shooting team, out of nowhere. Ajay?
What's the question? Like, if the playoffs
Are
ended
you
today?
okay? Yeah, you okay with this matchup, or is there any other matchup you like to see?
I would love this matchup. The only problem is I don't like that I'd rather be in that 2, 3, 6, 7 bracket instead of the 1, 4, 5, 8 bracket. But Cleveland would be nice. It would be a nice matchup for us. We match up very well against them, and what I'm going to tell you is going to sound crazy, but after Cleveland, the one team I would rather see before the other ones is Miami.
Okay.
We're not going to have a repeat of last year where all of a sudden Miami becomes this great shooting team. All right, that ain't going to happen. All right, Miami is what they are right now. I mean, they're a scrappy team. We're scrappy too. We play them. We play the same style with them, so it's not going to be a cakewalk.
No.
Yeah, we do. They just a little.
No, I'm saying no. It's not going to be a cakewalk.
Oh yeah, I know. But overall, I think we would prevail against them. It would be a 6-7 game series, easy, and it would be a brutal one. But I and the reason why I'd rather play them than the Orlandos and the Indiana, they're more predictable. Like, they're more of a conventional team. Orlando, Indiana, I don't understand them. Like, you might play them and then this kid Halliburton goes for 50. Like, they have those. They're like irky jerky kind of team. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand. Like, you can't game plan against them, because on any given night, it might be Naismith all of a sudden becomes like, this 30-point guy, but Miami, you know who they are, you know what they're gonna do.
Hero is back for them too.
Yes, I saw that yesterday. He played for them, but I would rather play those conventional teams like Cleveland, Miami, even Milwaukee. Like what to expect, instead of those young kids like they're all over the place. You have no idea what to expect from them. I would love for India, like the way the bracket is now, the way the matchups are right now for between the Pacers and the Magic. One of them take the other out. Makes it easier for the rest of the teams who are more conventional teams.
Look at the Bucks though. If it stands the way it is right now,
They're in trouble.
they're gonna play the winner of the Sixers Heat.
I would not want to be in their shoes right now.
So if we could get the 3, we could play. Well, I think it's gonna be tough. If we get the 3, we may be playing 76ers Miami. Miami 76ers are healthier. I think they've won 3 straight. Somebody check me if I'm, if I'm wrong. In the last game, they won without Embiid, though they went to double overtime with San Antonio, letting you know just how important he is to their team. But that's the playoff picture, and this is us. Our next 4 games, right? We got tomorrow. We play the Bulls at 9 p.m. in Chicago. Thursday, we play the Boston Celtics in Boston. And then, what? It's Friday. I didn't put Friday. Friday, we play Brooklyn, 7:30 p.m. at MSG. And then Sunday, 1 p.m., Chicago Bulls again at MSG. So next 2 games on the road, last 2 games at home. 3 teams under Chicago Bulls are under 500, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Correct.
3 teams under 500, and I'm not sure how motivated the Bulls, the Boston Celtics, are going to be to play. Yeah, is your thoughts on these upcoming games? Can the Knicks win out? Is 50 wins possible? Is that even an issue, or is winning out just more about seeding? Lady in the Chef?
I mean, I would love to see. I did have them initially at 50 wins for the season. I think it's possible, kind of. I see them with these next 4 games going 3-1. I would love to see the Knicks beat Boston. I think for that one final time.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think Boston's going to sit players out? I don't know. I think whenever teams play the Knicks, magically players are better and they come off the injury list, they're magically going to play against the Knicks. But I think the seeding is more so important than the actual reaching of 50 wins, just because I think it's dependent on the matchups of where the Knicks land and trying to avoid Boston as much as possible. But not either way, I think the Knicks should be able to beat Chicago both times. They shouldn't have lost that first time. And Brooklyn, same thing. You got to beat them. So I think that, I think a lot of these next 4 games, the mistakes the Knicks have been making need to be corrected. You can't go into the playoffs with the sloppy passes and the turnovers, which haven't been high. I have to give the Knicks credit there, but just correct the mistakes, the little silly, minute mistakes that the Knicks have been making. I think guys need to go in a bit more locked in and ready for the playoffs. And that focal point has to be there to be prepared and be ready for that first round. So I think the seeding is more so important, just because we need to see who we're facing for that first round. And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Okay. Your predictions as well? 4-0, you're predicting?
3-1.
3-1. Okay. Ajay, including your prediction?
I would like to see us hit that 50 win for 2 reasons. Because it sounds good. Like it sounds like we made, we made some progress from last season, right? Last season, I think we finished with 47 wins or 40.
47, I believe.
47. So yeah, it'd be nice to be, to win 3 more games. Even with, listen, if we win 47 game this season, we're better because of all the injuries we've had. Okay, so it's like, but if 50 would be nice. And the second thing is 50 would possibly put us in the second, at least third seed, at least in the third seed with the Orlando and Milwaukee playing each other. One of them is gonna drop, right? So that if we win all 4 games, we'll at least be in the third seed.
And that puts us in a different bracket, correct?
Yes,
That puts us in the Milwaukee bracket.
Right. That puts us in the 2, 3, 6, 7 bracket.
Right. Okay.
So prediction. I mean, I don't know what Boston's gonna do. Aside from Boston, we should be able to win the other 3 games. And so if Boston it doesn't take this, and I don't see why they would take this game serious and jeopardize their guys. They should be resting their guys and getting prepared for the playoffs. So we should be able to win that one in that case. But if they come in there at full strength, just trying to make a point, it's going to be tough. I mean, they're a formidable team. They're a very good team. They have the best record in NBA for a reason, because they're very, very talented team. Very well coached and so it's so worst case scenario 3-1, and what I would like 4-0.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always wrong with my predictions, so I'm going to go with 2-2, so that way we'll be 3-1 or better. But it's I don't think we're going to get anything light from Boston. I think Boston wants to, especially with KP on their squad, I think they want to stick it to the Knicks. I think they want the Knicks to lose so that they have a tougher draw. I think we're going to get Boston at full strength, and really impossible to beat on their home floor. I'll be shocked if they rest players in that game. I think they'll rest players in their other games, but I think that we'll get the best they have to offer, similar to SGA playing 1 game in his last 8 and it being at the Garden.
I know, right?
So, and get blown out by Boston and Philadelphia. Thanks a lot, OKC. But Chicago presents us with some problems. I mean, if we don't have iHeart and Mitch both at their full strength level, we saw in the fourth quarter, those 2 bigs ate us up. We need those 2. We need both Mitch and iHeart to be healthy. Either that or we need Josh Hart to stay on the floor and not get ejected. That would help. But I don't know. I think 50 wins is possible. I don't think it's likely. 3-1 is probably the looking at it, from an analytical perspective, is probably what will happen, I would hope. And like I said, one is the important number, though. You get to 1, you solidify at least the 6th seed, and then you go from there. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's just beat Chicago tomorrow night, get in the top 6, and then as far as I'm concerned, everything else is kind of gravy. Like if we get up to 3, great. If we get up to 2, even better. If we're 4 or 5, I don't care. I think anywhere we go, as long as we avoid the play, and I'm not going to be killing the Knicks over it.
Do you think though Boston might want to lose to help us get that 3rd seed because they don't want to face us in the second round, or do you feel like they don't even care? Like they
oh my god,
feel like
we're so vain, us Knicks fans.
No, I'm just saying, or they feel like it doesn't even matter we face. We don't need to do any of those shenanigans. Whoever we face, we should win.
I think they want to send a message. I think they want to go unbeaten against us this year and just crush us and assert that dominance and say it doesn't matter who you have out there. We're a better team than you. That's what I think it is. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I agree. I think exactly that. They want to beat us to make a point.
Yeah. Shout out to Drugs Only. Appreciate you rocking with us and everybody else rocking with us. In the chat. Anything? Oh, if we get to the second, if we win 50 games and get to the second seed, does Brunson climb the MVP ladder to top 5?
Ooh, good question.
Queen, listen.
Yes or no, and why? 1 minute. Ajay.
In our opinion, he's already the MVP. But those who vote, I don't care what Brunson does, he's not going to be in the top 5. I don't know. There's a conspiracy. They hate the Knicks. They hate Brunson. They will not allow. That's just not going to happen. You know, those people who vote, the Kenny Smith,
Top 250 wins on this team?
it will not matter. He's not getting there. All right. Shaq, Candace Parker, those people are not putting Brunson in top 5. That's just not going to happen. All right.
I wonder if do they have a vote? I'm not even sure.
I'm sure they do. It's the same. It's the same people.
Lady in the Chef, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that definitely puts him in the category for MVP, because to me, you know, if you can do that for a team, I think along with his stats and what he's been doing, I think that's the bigger impact, and I think that's what's going to be looked at, the way he's carried this team on his back without a Randle, you know, with an injured OG, Mitch still getting the rust off of him. I think that'll be the bigger outlook that'll be looked at as like, wow, sure, he's had these tremendous, great stats throughout the season, but the fact that he's brought them that far, you know what, I think it'll make for an even better story overall for the Knicks. I think the Knicks going into the playoffs as the underdogs, I think it makes for it's great for this team. I like them being the underdogs. And I think part of the reason why is because the Knicks don't get any respect. They're not known as a team that has been consistently in the playoffs. They're just getting finally someone who's just as great, and they're making strides from last season to this season. But I think that if he is able to bring them that far, yeah, Jalen Brunson for sure, top 5 MVP votes for sure.
Yeah. From what they say, from your lips to God's ears.
Ain't happening.
Jeff, your thoughts on that?
I think it should. Will it? I don't know. It should.
And he hasn't been on any of the MVP ladders.
Nope.
No.
Not. He's not even the top 10.
Brunson doesn't need a ladder.
Not even honorable mention.
Not even right. Knicks 100 a GM. Brunson ain't won none of them games we needed by himself, and neither has Embiid, neither has the Joker, neither has Tatum. Nobody who wins MVP wins those games by himself. I'll tell you what, he's won a lot of them seemingly by himself. You know, I don't get Knicks 100 a GM. And I think Greg are the last stragglers, in my opinion. Maybe there's some others in the chat that I haven't seen when it comes to getting on board with Jalen Brunson and what he's doing for this team.
Yeah.
Those are the only two I see still talking about, you know, he's ball hogging, he's not getting his teammates involved. He's just trying to score. I just don't see that.
I at some point you question, do some people, do they even like the Knicks? I mean, here's a guy who's coming here helping us win games, but you can't stand him. Do you like the team? Like, do you want us to win? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you really want us to win? Or do you want to stay miserable and keep losing? And then, I mean, I don't understand. Some people you just brush to the side and keep moving.
I saw on Twitter, somebody said when Randle went out, when the news came out that Randle wasn't playing, and they said, good, they like the way the ball has been moving. I'm like, yo, we are okay. But is that going to get us a championship, or is Randle going to get us a championship or help get us a championship, even if the ball doesn't move as well? You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting points for the ball moving. And believe it or not, when Randle and OG was here, the ball was moving, and we were 15. You know, we were 15. 15-2. So,
Queen, I'm sorry, Queen. It's the same thing to tell you, Brunson. He doesn't pass the ball, but we're winning. We win in games. Oh, well, no, he needs to pass the ball more. He needs more assists. He's not a true point guard. He's not this. He's not, but we're winning. The point of this is to win. It's not to have assists. It's not to, it's not those personal stats. And Brunson himself, he told us that, like, in so many interviews, he doesn't care about the personal stats. He cares about whether the team wins or not. That's what he cares about.
I think he would be happy if we got another star in this team and he took less shots. I don't think he would. I don't think he would have a problem with it.
Who's he passing the ball to? Like,
and we need his score. Shout out to Trav. Trav, I need you to do me a favor. When you're making your songs, I need you to email them to me or DM them to me so that I can play them on the show. Sometimes I'll see them on Twitter. Sometimes I won't. But if you can DM them to me, I can promote it on the show. Doing great work. I appreciate you. Really cool guy. I miss those draft parties at Atlantic City with the MBK fam. The Knicks are not in the draft. We got to figure out another thing to do as a family to get together. I think he's scoring because we need him to score.
When we need him to pass, he passes. When we need him to take a charge, he does. If you can't see that, man, I don't know what y'all watching.
My guy, DJ Shuttle, hold on. I got something for you. We do this every week, or almost every week we do this. Shout out to my guy, DJ Shuttle, Mondays on Instagram Live every Monday at 8 p.m. during the show. So you can listen to the show, have DJ Shuttle, in the background. What's up, fam? Barbershop Sports Talk. And then Fridays, 108 Soul, Friday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. That's why DJ Shuttle is not with us on Mondays. He's doing this thing on IG Live. Tony Crow, missing him as well. But Lady and the Chef, Ajay, Jeff, hoping to hold the show down. You guys have been awesome. And you guys may not realize this. If you've ever hosted a show with other panel members, the panel members make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
If you got really sharp panel members, it just really helps to the show. And Lady and the Chef, Ajay, Jeff, some of the best in the business Lady and the Chef talked about that at length early in the show. So be a part of the replay game, Barbershop Sports Talk podcast. Miss you, DJ Shuttle. Listen, when you get on live and we still on, listen, you're welcome to pop on.
For a couple even if it's for a couple of minutes.
Even if it's for a couple of minutes, let us know. Actually, I was looking for it. I don't think I know how to get. I went to IG. I was like, well, where's live? It's like, where's the live button? I don't. Anyway, any last words? Anything we didn't talk about today that you want to talk about before we get out of here?
The Knicks were fined $25,000 for violating the injury reporting rules.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Regarding Mitch, right?
Yeah.
What was the gist of it?
They said the fine concerns the Knicks' failure to accurately disclose the status of Mitchell Robinson ahead of their meeting with the Toronto Raptors on March 27th.
Okay.
The Knicks listed Robinson out on their initial injury report, and then he went on to appear in the game.
Okay.
Yeah. So
they fined Philly $100,000 for doing the same thing for Joel Embiid, no?
Yeah, because they have a track record, I believe. That's why it was 100.
Repeat offenders.
Anything else we didn't talk about, or any last words?
Queen, I don't know if we talked about this, and shout out to Barbershop Sports Talk, who said he hates the slow starts recently. I don't know if we talked about that.
We talked about when we talked about what stood out for us this week. Lady and the Chef That's what she chose to talk about. But if you want to add to it, you can.
No, that was a good point because I missed that part. Like that's very important, man. I don't know what's up with that, man. It's just. I mean, a couple of games we've been able to pull it off and you know turn around and win those games. But I mean, we definitely need to start the games better with more energy.
Mhm.
You know,
Let me just tell you, and I may have mentioned this on the show last night. I mean, when was our show? Saturday. The Knicks are 30. Now, this was as of Saturday. The Knicks are 31-6 when they win first quarters this season. This was before the Milwaukee game, and 14-26 when they don't win the first quarters. Yeah.
So 15-26 because we lost the first quarter against the one.
Well, we did. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Wiz, I just disagree. I disagree. I think we're thinking about the 90s when you could just put your best defensive players in there and they're going to hold them down and you're going to come out with a win. Mitch, Precious, Josh, Deuce.
I think he's saying start Precious, and then you'll have Deuce, Josh, and Mitch coming off the bench.
Oh, I see.
If I'm
Precious
reading
starting with
before
Deuce.
Jan.
So starting Precious and Deuce?
Starting Precious and OG and Hartenstein and DiVincenzo and Brunson. I think that's what he's saying.
Oh, Deuce is part of the other three. Okay. With Deuce, Josh, and Mitch off the bench. I just feel like we don't have any unless we have a 4. Well, I mean, listen, he might be able to guard Tatum. He might be able to guard. We didn't even use him against Giannis.
Mhm.
I think Precious might be.
OG was pretty good against Giannis in the second half.
He played against him.
OG did. I said OG was good against Giannis in the second half. That's it. That's all I remember. Nobody could stop Giannis in the first half, though.
Right.
It was like 7 of 11 from the field, just killing us.
Yeah. Yeah, JJ. And in this NBA, I wanted to make this point. Having two-way players is paramount in today's NBA. If you have one-dimensional players on either the offensive end or the defensive end, they're going to exploit it. Look at what Boston did. Boston traded Marcus Smart because he was exploited in the playoffs for his lack of shooting. Now, they didn't trade him directly for Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday just happened to become available. But you gave up somebody who was better defensively than they were offensively for someone who may be just as good defensively, if not better, and really good on the offensive end. They traded their center, Time Lord. What's his
Robert Williams.
Robert Williams. Traded him one-dimensional, very good on the defensive end. They have KP. I'm not saying it was a direct trade, for KP, but they have KP, who's not he's a rim protector. He can rebound as well, but I don't think he's as good a defender. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, as Robert Williams was, but their defense is still good.
Mhm.
Even though they don't have those two, their defense is still good. And if you think about it, when Mitchell Robinson was out, and I don't know if somebody else was out, the Knicks still had the number 1 defense in the league during that time. So my point is, it's okay to give up these one-dimensional players. You can still have a good defense, depending on how the rest of the team is constructed. Now, when you play Boston with KP and Drew instead of Time Lord and
Smart.
Marcus Smart,
They're
huge,
long and they're switchable.
huge upgrades, and their defense is still good. I'm not sure where it's ranked, but it's still, I believe it's top 10. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Nostalgic Nick. We didn't talk about Mitch. I thought Mitch really came alive in that second quarter against second half against Milwaukee. So he's
getting his
rounding into
legs
shape.
back.
Say that again.
He's getting his legs back. It's
He's
still
getting his legs back and his hands.
Yeah.
And his hands. Like he'll get his hands on the ball, and he's looking a little like Precious, you know. But in that, was it the third quarter? He looked really good. He looked really good for us.
Block
So he's
Dame
coming
on a
along.
3.
What'd you say, Jeff?
Blocked Dame on a 3, and then had those 2
Out
big
of
blocks.
nowhere, like his reaction time on that block was incredible.
And he had 6 rebounds, I think, in limited minutes, which was good to see too. We
Yes.
needed more of those.
Yeah.
Free throws still a nightmare though.
Yeah. Yeah. And an adventure. Mitch is moving and saying, yeah, he is. It's gonna take him some time. It's gonna take him some time. All right. Anything else?
Yeah. So Josh Hart, a little word of advice: keep the Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan impression for when we play in Miami, please. I want to see that go upside Bam Adebayo's head. Queen,
you know, got that already. Come on.
Remember that video you showed the other day when in Miami.
There's another one floating out there of and that one is over a minute of how what's his name? Bam Adebayo, the different injuries on the Knicks players over the past 2 years. He's stepping on Brunson's ankle, rolling up on IQ's knee, all of them in a row. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Any last words? We out of here?
Let's go Knicks.
Yeah.
3-1, worst case scenario, but looking for 4-0.
Yeah. Shout out to the chat. Like even if we win if we tie last season's wins or even one game over, that would be incredible.
It really would.
That
phenomenal job.
Yeah, phenomenal. Phenomenal job.
Oh, quick, one last thing. Shout out to ESPN, ESPN.com, because we're in Knicks Nation. BSPN.com. Shout out Ron Still Knicks fan. We're going crazy. You know, the Knicks, they beat Milwaukee. It was a huge win, we felt, but good luck trying to find that on the ESPN website. I mean, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll all the way down. Like, oh, yeah, Brunson had 43, by the way. They beat Milwaukee. Next. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch NBA TV, but sometimes on NBA TV, and I love NBA TV, when they're doing the highlights, we're winning. We've won the game, and they're showing the highlights of the other team.
Yeah, and when the other team does not have a lot of highlights, the recap of our game is like 20 seconds.
Right.
When we lose, it's like a 5 minutes recap.
I just don't watch the shows. That's why you just need to watch Lady and the Chef show and watch our show.
Right.
You know, you don't need to watch ESPN's garbage. Get rid of that.
Garbage.
Yeah. Anyway,
and Diva have a post game for you. They'll chop it up. They'll tell you what you need to know.
Yeah. Sure. When is your next show, Lady in the Shop?
We're on tomorrow at 6:30.
Pre-game.
Tomorrow. Oh, I work tomorrow till 8. All right. All right, fam. Appreciate you. Until next time.
Peace.